It's a new month, you know what that means. New usage stats and tier shifts for Gen 9 competitive singles. While this shift features less Horizon drops than previous months, we still have some insane drops like the former uber stable deoxys speed dropping to the UE tier. When it was even talked about getting potentially banned shortly, it was allowed in OU again. Even its counterpart deoxys defense dropped to RU as well. Aside from that, landorus-t has risen up massively in usage, now finding itself in the top 10 most used Pokemon, even though it almost fell to UU at one point. Whereas strong threats like Iron Boulder and Serperior, which were at the top of the metagame, are on the edge of falling down to UU. There's much more to discuss, so let's get into all of these shifts and usage stats. So here are all the tier shifts for this month. As you can see, we only have one rise to OU, which is Blissey again. As this Pokemon just drops off and rises up every month. It's a continuous cycle. Yeah, we also got like a couple, quite some rises to the UU tier, like Rotom Wash, Slowking, and Mamoswine, which are deserved. And we have a couple drops, which are Deoxys Speed, Excadrill, and Skeledirge. I'm gonna start off talking about Blissey, and we'll mention these drops as well. Blissey is the special wall, right? When the tier is in need of something to keep in check dangerous special attackers, Blissey will rise up. Now, what is also a important factor is stall. Stall is still a great playstyle. This team actually that you're seeing right here has been quite a popular stall team on the ladder, because it reached number 2. And it also has some unique Pokemon like the Poison, Sting, Amnesia, Bulldoze, Clodsire, which I talked about in another video. And you have the Hydrapple with Terra Ice and Terra Blast. So this team has seen quite some usage, and basically is just a great special wall to, some big threats like Raging Bolt and Curm, for example. This is one of the more better checks to those Pokemon that can be quite difficult to deal with. Now, Deoxys Speed dropping to the UU tier is quite a big drop, one of the biggest maybe in this whole generation, and that says a lot. Now, just because it's UU should not fool you into thinking it's not a good Pokemon anymore in the OU tier. I think especially in Gen 9, we have a lot of threats that are not OU, like UU or RU maybe, that are still like a big threat in the OU tier if you were to encounter them. So it's just something you should keep in mind. Now, this Pokemon was a very controversial topic back after it got unbanned with the release of DLC 2. I even talked about it myself. It was one of the, best Pokemon in the OU tier, but talked about a potential suspect and ban. But it's not the case anymore. Like I said, Deoxys Speed is not a banned Pokemon. It's just a very specific Pokemon you only encounter on hyper offensive teams, as like a Hazard lead or a Screens lead, or just a straight up offensive Pokemon. But I do think this Pokemon is still very good and very strong. It's manageable right now in the meta. I think we have adapted to, Deoxys Speed, and, the meta is kind of settling down a little bit. Deoxys Speed is just not the big threat we all thought it was, or most people thought it was, back after it got unbanned. Excadrill dropping is not really surprising to me. I only think it was OU because it was a new Pokemon that returned. A big part of Excadrill is sand teams. Not a very viable playstyle at the moment, especially with Rain, which was a very meta before Charizard got banned. So, sand teams had no room to shine. Tyranitar's also not that great of a Pokemon in the OU tier. Aside from that, so sand team's not really viable, which means Excadrill's not really viable. Aside from the Iron Thresh, just severely outclasses it on as a more utility Pokemon. As a lead, it also outclasses Excadrill because it is significantly faster, and it also has Rapid Spin, same typing, Stealth Rock. Steel Beam with Booster Energy is just way better as well. So there's no really room for Excadrill to shine. I will say though that, now Excadrill and Tyranitar can set up sand in the UU tier, which should be cool. Skeledirge is another Pokemon that has been dropping and rising the whole generation. Still think it's a great Pokemon, probably will rise up back at some point. However, I think with Rain being as good as it was last month, it's just a contributing factor to its drop. Now, it was one of the better checks to Archelodon, thanks to Unaware, of course, but its defensive typing is also, you know, it's good, but it's easy to take advantage of by a lot of the top tier Pokemon like Kingambit, Great Tusk, Golden Go, Dragapult, Gliscor. So, you know, Ogerpon Wellspring has been rising up a lot as well. Before we end the video, I want to take a look at this usage stats as well, because quite some stuff has happened. For example, Golden Go has dropped off quite a bit. It's still like a top tier Pokemon, right? But I don't think this Pokemon has ever dropped off from top 5. I think this is the first time. It has been lower than that. Also, number 10, as you can see right here, landorus-t beat the UU allegations and is now a top 10 Pokemon yet again, and actually beat Gliscor in usage, which is quite surprising to see. If you're wondering what this Pokemon has going for it that makes it, you know, usable, it has Stomp and Grass Knot have been very popular options on this Pokemon. And, you know, fast Stomp, basically, that's what it comes down to. That's really what it has over Great Tusk and Gliscor, for example. Grass Knot also to threaten some water types and ground types as well. That's basically what landorus-t has. And, you know, Intimidate, of course, never a bad ability. As you can see, Ogerpon Wellspring, number 13 on the list. I think it was like around somewhere around here, maybe last month. And before that, it was like almost in the UU tier. Also, a special shout out to Roaring Moon being number 5. I think it was already very high up last month, but now very high in usage. Also, as you can see, Iron Threads number 16. That's basically because of the rain meta, of course. Nothing really surprising there. Now, if you look right here at the end, you can see Serperior and Iron Boulder almost dropping off. You know, Iron Boulder was like a top 5 Pokemon when it first got released. Dropped off a little bit last month, but right now it's almost in the UU tier, which is quite insane. The problem with Iron Boulder, it's, you know, it's only good on hyper offensive teams. And even then, it can struggle a little bit. It is one of the, basically the fastest Pokemon in the tier with booster energy, right? But that means you cannot really switch it out. It only is a one-time Pokemon. You send it in and you have to do work. This Pokemon cannot really sweep teams without setting up. So you're forced to set up a sword stance, which means the opponent can potentially take advantage of you setting up, since this Pokemon does have a very poor defensive typing. A lot of stuff can hit it for super effective damage. It's also very susceptible to priority moves, especially Sucker Punch and Aqua Jet, for example. It did not really appreciate the rain meta, which makes its speed not usable at all, because Barraskewda can just outspeed it every time. And that's basically Iron Boulder. Its offensive typing is also not great, but it has never been great. Serperior almost dropping off, even though it was like one of the more problematic Pokemon when it first was released. Not that surprising if you really look at how the metagame is right now. Not very friendly towards it. Look, for example, the top 10. You know, Serperior's main way of pressuring the opponent is with, you know, powerful Leaf Storms. But before it actually attacks once, it's not even threatening, even after attacking twice. That's its main way of getting, you know, those boosts. But there are a lot of Pokemon that can very easily tank Leaf Storms, even if Serperior has multiple boosts going. When you look at the top 10, we got Kingambit, Raging Bolt, Dragapult also can take two of those Leaf Storms. Roaring Moon, Volcarona, Slocking Galar, Golden Go. You know, Dragonite's also very high up in usage as well. You know, with the rain meta, even though Serperior matches up for the most part quite good against rain teams thanks to its grass typing, of course, Archelodon basically made it very difficult for Serperior to actually get something done. Now, I will say it's still one of the best status spreaders you can have on the team. I mean, factor in as well that Leaf Storm has a very low base H or PP. I mean, not to mention that this Pokemon is very Terra reliant. It has shifted away from Terra Stellar. It's more opt for stuff like Terra Ground, Terra Rock, or Terra Fire. But even with those coverage options, you cannot hit everything you want. even if you're hitting neutral, does not really break to those Pokemon anyway. Even if you have all set up and you're set up for a sweep, there are plenty of faster options that can just take a hit if needed and outspeed you, break the sub, or just outright one-hit kill. Most notably Dragapult, for example, Roaring Moon, Iron Valiant. So that's a short analysis on the tier shifts and usage sets of this month. Let me know your thoughts about all of this, what's something that's very notable to you. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.